Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. Do you feel like you're stuck in a dinner rut? With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip all those trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. You can now enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less. With over 25 recipes to choose from each week, there is something for everyone to enjoy. All recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. Go to the link in our show notes to get $80 off, including free shipping on HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit.
The rest. Now here's the best. Stay Tuned Sports Podcast.
And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Sports. It's your good friend Jimbo here. Back again. Not as happy as I was last week with the NFL being back, preseason being back, because of how my lovely Eagles decided to say, we're not going to play. 35-0. Take it home. We're good. We practiced against the Patriots all week. We're good. It was a disaster. But I'll be talking about that a little bit later on. Have some other news to finish up here. This past Friday was the championship finale of the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series, first half of the season. We have a new champ. Well, yeah, new champion, because Mitchell Adams was the back-to-back champion. He was going for the three-peat. Unfortunately, could not make it to the three-peat. I guess he missed a couple races or whatnot. But a little bit of UFC talk at the end of the show here, like we normally do. The UFC, though, it's supposed to be like it's UFC Fight Night. Barboza and I'll have to look up who he was facing, but it's basically the Ultimate Fighter finale. There's about 3 or 4 fights on there. That's the guys that were on the show and mixed in with some of the UFC fighters as well. So, going to be an interesting card. But I mean, speaking of cards, BKFC last week. Oh my God, I think I saw a dead man. I forget which fight it was, but guy just knocked out his opponent cold to the point they actually called the EMS in, and I think it was more so because of how he landed on his forehead, basically, maybe like worried about a neck injury or whatnot, but didn't hear anything bad come out of the situation. So I mean, I guess no news is good news. So I mean that's good. But before we really dive into the show, make sure you guys head over to staytunedsports.net so that way you can follow all of our social media accounts and subscribe to our YouTube channel. On the right hand side, there's our Facebook, Twitter. Just click it, takes you right to the homepage of our social medias. And like I said, you're gonna want to follow and like them all, because when football season kicks off, I'm gonna be doing some type of a giveaway. Not quite sure yet. I'm kind of narrowing it down of what ideas I want to do and stuff like that, but you're gonna have to like and follow the show, though, so that way it pops up on your social media accounts. Also on the website there, if you go up to the top, is our merch tab. We have the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series t-shirt there available for you. Shows all the racetracks we were at, and if you buy a shirt and there's a race on there you're curious about, hey, you go over to YouTube, 3YTV, and search for the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series, and you can go rewatch the race. That's a wonderful thing about YouTube. Plus other things, I guess, too. But no, yeah, definitely head back over there, because there's a lot of times that I got work the next day, so that's what I end up doing myself. So, and then once you're done looking up all that, if you don't want to buy a shirt, it's all fine, it's all good, not mad. Head over to www.buymeacoffee.com ST Sports. Just another way, if you want to help support the show, you can buy me a beer over there. No, it's not a real beer, but you know. And speaking of which, I just want to give a quick shout out to Garrick Leeson. Thank you for your 2 beers you bought me. Much appreciate that. So, and then, you know, with the show, with any of the segments, whether it's past episodes or this episode, if you don't agree with my opinions or you want to ask me a question or something like that, you could actually call in. You could call in and leave a message, and I'll be able to put it on the show and answer it right on the show for you. So in order to do that, sorry, it's been a long day. All you gotta do is call 612-STS-CHAT. I mean, you can't get much easier than that. Stay Tuned Sports Chat, STS. You know, come on now. So with all that out of the way now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the show here. So like I said, this past Friday was our finale race of the Stay Tuned Sports podcast truck series with the NSRA guys over on 3Y TV. And I mean, it was a hell of a year. First half of the season, I think Peter even agreed with me on the during the race. I believe we had like 5 or 6 new race winners out of the first 7 or 8 races of the season. I mean, that's really cool. And it's not like each one was a blowout. I mean, each one came down to the line. But then when the second half of the season kind of came about, Andrew Himmelman kind of catch fire. You know, I mean, even going into the championship race here, he won like 5 or 6 out of the last 7 races. You know, so I mean, he was pretty dominant. And in the end, you know, spoilers alert here, Andrew did win the championship with a dominating performance. Some drama though. I mean, going into the race, the 4 racers that were eligible for a championship were Andrew Himmelman, like I just said, Stan Hausman, Chris Darling, and Matt Cherry. Race started off, and I believe it was lap 14, 15, somewhere around there. Matt Cherry got involved in an accident, pretty nasty, but he, you know, took it to the pits, tried to fix it up as best as he could. Unfortunately, could not get it to where it could be competitive to try to overtake Andrew and win the championship. So he ended up calling it quits around lap 96. Christopher Darling, who the past 2-3 weeks, you know, before the chase even started, he was one of the guys that were on the bubble about, you know, making it in there or whatnot. And his luck kind of turned around a little bit because, I mean, obviously for him to go from possibly missing the chase to having a chance to win the championship, can't say that's all luck. I mean, you know, his luck did change, but, you know, he started to make some moves around the right guys and was able to get into the championship race. But like Matt Cherry, I believe it was actually the next caution. He was taken out again, pretty badly damaged to the truck. He ended up calling it a night. So now it's basically down to Stan Hausman and Andrew Himmelman. And secretly, I was kind of pulling for Stan Hausman. I was watching his number, you know, up on the live tracker, and he was right there. He's right there, like 5th, 6th, 7th place the whole night. And I mean, really, when you're in that type of spot, and Andrew Himmelman did have one little scare where he kind of spun out a little bit there. That's all it takes when you're in 5th or 6th, you know, spot to overtake that championship spot, because these racers didn't need to win the race. All they had to do was finish the furthest above the other 3. So if Andrew would have spun out, Stan would have passed him and quite possibly have won the race. But in the end, he didn't. He came in second in the championship race. Andrew Himmelman ended up winning the race. Like I said, just a dominating performance. I think he led like a little bit more than half of the laps. So Andrew Himmelman is our first ever Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series champion. Now the series is going to take a few weeks off. We come back September 17th. So if there's any drivers out there still looking to join a league or whatnot, just head over to the NSRA page on Facebook. Send them a message. They'll be able to send you their Discord link, and you'll be able to join that way. As well as if anybody wants to sponsor races or be part of the next season, do the same thing. Head over there to the NSRA Facebook page, and they'll be able to give you any information, any questions that you may have. Eagles had their second preseason game last week. Kind of alluded to a little bit at the top of the show there against the Patriots. It was so terrible. I turned it off. I don't even think they were out of the first quarter. I was like, I got to work in the morning. I'd rather go to bed now instead of suffer through this and suffer being tired at work. And when I woke up, I did not see no 35-0. I mean, I know we were bad. Our offense could not move. It was the total opposite of what our offense was doing in our first preseason game. Now, Jalen Hurts didn't start because he had some type of stomach bug. So Joe Flacco got the start, which is kind of funny because after the first game, I'm in a couple Eagles Facebook groups, and a lot of them are, start Flacco over Hurts. He looks so much better, and this and that, the other thing. And I'm pretty sure I even said last week, listen, guys, maybe we should pump the brakes here. It's only one preseason game. Let's see how the rest of the preseason goes. Well, here you go. Now there's talk of, get rid of Flacco. And one thing I did see from Dan Orlovsky or whatever his name is from ESPN, and I would be on board with this. Philly should trade for Gardner Minshew. Earlier today, today's Wednesday, you guys listen to this Thursday, Trevor Lawrence was named the Week 1 starter for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If I was Gardner Minshew, I'd be asking for a trade. You're not going to start. They're going to stick with Lawrence unless he gets hurt. They didn't, I don't want to say waste the first overall draft pick. I still don't think it's the right call to start him. I always believed, unless you're a Tom Brady right out of the gate, I always believe rookie quarterbacks will do better in the long run by sitting down at least half the year, if not the whole first year of their career. And especially with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, the running game took a hit with their rookie running back being out the year now. I mean, who's there for him, for Lawrence, to help him out? And so I think it's gonna be a long year for Lawrence. But if give him Gardner Minshew, if Philly could pull it off somehow and pull a trade, I don't know how the numbers would work. If they could try to trade Flacco for Minshew, maybe throw in a couple of draft picks, I definitely would, because I know Philly has the cap space now after making a couple moves, restructuring contracts and stuff like that. Once again, though, the only thing that was still the same compared to the first game was the backup defense. Just terrible. They let Cam Newton and Mac Jones just walk down that field. And it was funny because, they had joint practices during the week, and Kayvon Wallace, the Eagles' young safety, was chirping at Cam Newton all week, calling him King Checkdown, and because Cam Newton wasn't, taking shots or whatever. Cam Newton looked good. Okay, I mean, granted, second and third strings that he was thrown against, but he wasn't checking down. So, I mean, in the end, Cam Newton definitely got the last laugh. But this defense God help us if our starters start going down. It will be a longer season than what it might be already. Look at the schedule. And I was thinking like maybe we can win 7 games. And really in that division, 7 games will win you the division. But if we start getting some injuries, we're lucky if we win 2 games. So I don't know what Howie Roseman could do. I mean, I'm sure there's no one out there on the streets now. Maybe he's waiting for some roster cuts to replace some of these pieces. But like I said, we're screwed if they go in with these backups. Now they do play this their last preseason game against the Jets this Friday. And really what I want to see, one of the main ones I want to see is a bounce back game from Quiz Watkins. He was nowhere to be found in this game against the Patriots. Now he didn't have the big play with Jalen Hurts. Almost did if it wasn't for pass interference that wasn't called. But he had a couple big plays with Joe Flacco. So he has more chemistry with Flacco. So I want to see a little bit of a bounce back game from him. But with Jalen Hurts, I want to see Jalen Hurts start also and see him play with Devontae Smith, because even though Devontae Smith only had 2 catches for 19 yards, you got a glimpse of what he's going to bring to the table. 2 catches for 19 yards on 4 targets, you figure he's probably going to get 8 to 10 targets a game. Even if you catch 5 or 6 of those, it's still a decent game and a decent season if you keep that pace. And last aspect of the game, what I'm looking forward to seeing is these backups stepping up. This is the last game they have to show that they need that they should be on this team, or at worst, get some more film so that you could go to another team and say, hey, I'm better than this guy that you got on your roster. Here's my film. Just take a look. So definitely a better outcome from our backups. I want to see Jalen Hurts start getting a lot more chemistry with Devontae Smith, Reagor, and Quiz Watkins. With the NFL season only 14 days away, I was thinking about this past week. Why not start talking about firing coaches? No, I don't mean right now, but what coaches going into the season are on the hot seat the most? And I got my top 3. And at the end of the segment, I'll probably get my one who I think is gonna not even make it half the season, and who may make it the season and still have a job, and then who's probably gonna get fired after the season. So the first obvious one I think out there, Matt Nagy. Every year that he's been with the Chicago Bears, felt like he's had some type of quarterback issue. Mitchell Trubisky unloading all those draft picks to move up to draft him, only to really get 1 Pro Bowl season out of him. And yeah, you made the playoffs, but what else have you done? You really haven't done too much. I mean, that defense helped you a little bit, but offensively, you just haven't brought to the table what you were doing in Kansas City. Now, he has Andy, and here's another reason why I think he's even more on the hot seat to really show and perform. You moved up to draft Justin Fields, but yet you're going to start Andy Dalton. Now, I know I just said a little bit earlier in the show that I like to see rookie quarterbacks start the season on the bench. And I still think Justin Fields will be better off by sitting on the bench. But if I'm Nagy, if I'm showing that, listen, I had faith in this guy to tell you guys to move up and draft him, then start him. That's the first game of the preseason, he looked good. This last game, he got lit up, pretty good. But you gotta fall on the sword that you got. You know, and that's moving up there to draft Fields. And the other part of this that I believe is gonna haunt him, and I think might be the final nail in the coffin for him. You brought Nick Foles in to be your starter, and now he's your third string quarterback who you're paying $4 million to. That means third string quarterback probably won't be dressing, and you're paying him $4 million to sit at home. Now, granted, I know the GM has to sign off on things, and the owner sometimes, depending on, I guess, you know, what kind of deal it is. But you had to say, hey, listen, I think this guy will work good in my offense. He worked good in my offense in Kansas City. He's going to work here good. And as much as I like Nick because he helped bring a Super Bowl to Philly, he's not that good. Wherever he's gone, he really hasn't had a good career. Well, let me take that back. He's had a decent career, but not Hall of Fame worthy or, you know, above average. He's a backup, not a $4 million man. My next guy that I have on the hot seat, Zach Taylor from the Bengals. You drafted Burrow last year. Don't blame you. You needed a quarterback to replace Andy Dalton and help out this offense that you're trying to bring in. You get Burrow hurt last year because no offensive line, tore his ACL up. You had the chance to get help in this past NFL draft with one of the best, if not the best, offensive line lineman rookie out there, and you decided to take Jamar Chase, which, listen, is not a bad pick at the time if you had offensive line. You know, you look at Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. In practices, you see the chemistry there because they had it back in Alabama. I think this is why they drafted Chase, because they're hoping to get that chemistry back and give him another weapon. But the problem is, when you're only having like 2 seconds to throw a ball, you're not going to be able to connect with him that much. And Burrow is going to get destroyed again. He's going to be lucky if he makes it out of the season healthy. And when you look at that division with the Steelers, the Browns, the Ravens, they're light years ahead of the Bengals. You know, so you had 2 high draft picks back-to-back years. You got to show some type of improvement this year. Otherwise, you're going to be gone. Then my third choice for coaches on the hot seat, Vic Fangio. Probably screwed his name up, sorry. But from the Broncos, the head coach from the Broncos. This is a tricky situation here because he's defensive minded and has had some good defenses there since he's been there. Much like Matt Nagy, he's had quarterback carousel since he's been there. He has not had a solid starter in a while. I mean, really, if you think about it, the last solid starter in Denver probably was Peyton Manning. And that's going 5 years now? Now, the sticky part of this, though, is there's rumors floating around that after, I think I saw it either after this season or next season, the Broncos may be up for sale, which means it's going to be a new owner. He's going to want his own GM. He's going to want his own coach. Doesn't want to, there's not going to be any staff left over from that. But if he can figure out the quarterback situation, because they have weapons on the offense, it's just they need a competent quarterback. And actually, earlier today, Teddy Bridgewater was named Week 1 starter, which I believe is the right choice. I think he's a good quarterback, and he showed it when Drew Brees was out for those 5-6 games last 2 years ago. So and when we went to the Panthers, he was average, and that's all the Broncos need right now is just a quarterback that can manage the game. Doesn't need to throw 500 yards up a game. Just manage the game, score 20, 25 points a game, and let that defense take over. Now, if he could get the quarterback situation figured out, I think he would buy himself another year. But if this Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock experiment doesn't work, he may be gone too. So out of these three coaches, the one that I see getting fired within the first half of the season, I'm not going to say first 4 weeks, but first half of the season would be Matt Nagy. Just because he's screwed up every quarterback situation that they gave him. The Nick Foles, Trubisky, and now possibly Justin Fields. The one that I could see getting fired after the season is Zach Taylor. Just because of the offensive line blundering during the draft. Now, if that offensive line somehow could coexist and keep Joe Burrow upright, then maybe he'll save his job. But if he gets Burrow hurt, they're going to fire him very next day after the season's over. And then with Vic, like I said, if Teddy Bridgewater does what I think he could do and just be average and manage the game, I think Vic will have a job next year. I don't think he'll get fired. So that's my three picks. Who's your top coach you think will be fired at some point during the season or after the season? Who do you think is on the hot seat? All you guys got to do is call 612-STS-CHAT. Let me know who you guys think will be fired or will be fired at some point. Up next, we have our Combat Corner segment, which is sponsored by BetAngles, live scores, odds, and the best expert picks every day. Start winning today at betangles.com. So, like I said, we have a UFC fight night, even though it's a UFC Ultimate Fighter finale show, how they used to do it. And I really only have 3 fights I'm going to pick from because I really don't watch this past Ultimate Fighter season. Wanted to, just kind of honestly forgot about it. So the 3 fights that I will be picking from is actually the main event, Edson Barboza versus Giga Chikadze. Then we have Kevin Lee versus Daniel Rodriguez in the welterweight division. And then we have Makhmed Muradov versus Gerald Meerschaert kicking off the show. So kicking off my picks here between those two, I'm going with Muradov. He's still semi-new to the UFC. He's 3-0 so far. Meerschaert is 2-3 in the last 5 fights. Okay, and with how they are cutting bigger name fighters from the roster, especially with the Ultimate Fighter series coming to an end Saturday night, they're going to need roster spots. So if Meerschaert loses here, I could see him being released next week. And I think that's what's going to happen, unfortunately, because he is a good fighter, just that past few fights hasn't put them together. So I'm going with Muradov there. Kevin Lee versus Daniel Rodriguez. I'm a big believer in the whole longer layoff you have, the worse it's going to be for you when you come back. And that is why I'm picking Daniel Rodriguez. Kevin Lee hasn't fought in over a year. I think it was last March is when he fought. And when you look at the records, in his last 5, he's 2-3, going against okay fighters. Rodriguez is 4-1 and just fought last month, so he's still in shape, fight shape. I mean, Kevin Lee, he has power and wrestling, but I think that layoff is going to really screw him up. And I think Rodriguez is going to win this one. The main event, Edson Barboza versus Giga Chikadze. It's amazing how Edson Barboza was so close to being a number one contender and going for a title. And now when you look back, he's 2-3 in his last 5 fights, but 2 of them were close fights. They were split decisions. So, I mean, he's still competitive, but just amazing that he had such a good run and now he can't really get back going. Giga is 5-0 in his last 5 and has 2 knockouts in his last 2 fights. Plus, he's fought a lot better opponents compared to Barboza. So that's why I'm going with Giga here. And again, I mean, if Barboza loses here, does UFC cut him? That means he's 2-4 in his last 6. And they're not big believers in, losing records lately. So I think that is going to be it for our show this week. Make sure you guys head over to staytunesports.net so you can click all of our social media accounts there, follow them for our giveaways when we start giving away during the NFL season, as well as our merch tab up top there. And then also visit www.buymeacoffee.com/stsports and you can buy me a beer. Even though it says buy me a coffee, you can buy me a beer. And don't forget about the one segment I told you guys. Give me your opinions about who you think is on the hot seat. All you gotta do is call 612-STS-CHAT to leave your opinion. And then I'll play it on the air next week. And we'll have a good old time. So till next week, this is your good friend Jimbo, signing out.